Hey everyone, welcome back to the PetaPixel Podcast. For those of you in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. We're publishing this the day before Thanksgiving. So if you need to escape...
I'm glad you said that. I would have no idea.
So if you need to escape from your family for an hour and a half, tell them you've got some very important people to listen to. I'm joined, as always, by Jordan Drake and Chris Nichols.
I have no idea what's going on. I haven't been on a podcast in weeks. This is very confusing for me. I've forgotten how to do this. But
we even missed last week as well, so we appreciate everybody sticking around.
But I'm going to do my best because, damn, we got everybody's favorite guest. Is that fair to say? You're the most returning guest on the PetaPixel Podcast with a third
self-proclaimed legend.
Gordon Laing from Camera Labs, from Dinobytes, from Travel Tips with Gordon, from the Guinness Book of World Records under Favorite Camera Reviewer.
Oh, okay.
Gordon's here.
What can I tell you? Thanks for having me. I'm reassuringly affordable. I think that's what it boils down to.
Yes. Plus, we told the viewers you would be returning at the end of the year, so we were kind of obligated, creatively to have you back.
The last time you were on was
horrible things you said to us in New York City, you know.
Oh, yeah. Whoops.
The last time you were on, I think, is our most listened to podcast. It's our blockbuster, our Titanic or Avatar or some James Cameron movie. So we got a lot to live up to today, but I'm excited.
That's really why we had you back.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But before Jordan,
let's get those numbers in. Let's get them in.
Before Jordan gets to his favorite way to start episodes, for anyone who's just listening to this and didn't catch the name of this show, this is Grading Every Camera Maker's 2024. That's what the goal of this will be. We probably won't get to tech support or comments this week because this is going to take us a while. But we did one at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, like in the summer. Now we're going to see how those grades stack up now that the year is coming to a close. But before we get to that, Jordan, take it away.
Yeah, I'm curious, everybody, because I get to see this when we're on trips. But I want to know, what is your coffee routine, both at home and when you're on the road?
You asked the best people for this. Like you've got two people.
I knew my audience
who are manic about coffee. Gordon, go first.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. You didn't pre-brief me on this, but just as it happens, I've got a brand new AeroPress. That's just right.
Is that the regular one or the jumbo?
This is the regular one, because I'm a regular guy, and this is fine. I actually got an AeroPress and a hand grinder. It certainly does. Many years ago for traveling, right? Because I was fed up with having not so much bad coffee when I was away, because you can get good coffee, but you got to hunt it down, and sometimes you haven't got the time. Sometimes you're in a really remote location, you can't do it. So I bought an AeroPress and a hand grinder, and it transformed our trips, both work trips and vacations, family holidays. But then when I got it home, I realized that it was a great coffee machine to have at home as well. So I brew with an AeroPress 4 times a day, 2 for me, 2 for my partner, literally every day. And I still use the hand grinder because it's kind of, you feel at one with the beans as you're grinding around. This is me grinding, not stirring the pot. This could be anything, couldn't it, really? The cauldron.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I do that. But remember, kids, it's all about the beans. And that's what it starts with. Support your local independent roaster. And there's plenty, fortunately, around where I live in Brighton. And I believe where you live, Jaron, or are based in Portland, has got some great coffee.
Fun fact, by the way, about the AeroPress, that was invented by Alan Adler. I believe he's the same guy who invented that circular Frisbee, the one that's like just a big... Yeah, anyway, Alan is a big fan of PetaPixel, and he's actually written articles on PetaPixel before. So Alan, if you're listening, we really appreciate you. And yeah, I also I own an AeroPress, but I haven't used it in a while because I've switched over to V60. In my Hario V60 system, and every morning I get up, I grind my beans to order in air quotes, and I make myself 30 grams of beans to 420 grams of water at 89 to 90 degrees Celsius, and drink my big cup, and then that's all I do.
It's those details, but what about when you're on a trip?
On a trip,
what's your solution then?
So you guys have seen it when we get an Airbnb. I may bring my whole V60 setup, and I've made you coffee before.
Yes, it's true.
But if I'm forced to travel lighter, I will do AeroPress, and I have a hand grinder as well. I have a Nock hand grinder that I like. Similar to the one you saw from Jeremy when we were in New York, Gordon, but I have the smaller one. He has the bigger one. I actually like his better, but mine is.
I have to say, I was the very grateful recipient of a taste of a magnificent coffee brewed by Jaron and Jeremy on a trip we were recently on together, and it was great, really, really fabulous. I've never personally gone as far as to do a V60 in my hotel room. That's a pour over. I stick to the AeroPress, and I thought I was being hardcore, but apparently I'm
you should out Gordon.
So,
I know.
For what it's worth, Jordan and Chris actually tasted that coffee in Japan. It's from
it was
from
delicious.
Glitch. Yeah, so it was very strawberry forward, which is super weird. It was good.
I'm looking forward to the contrast here. Chris, what's yours?
Oh, you want me to go? I love the dirtiest, blackest trailer trash coffee that you can find. I just
a tin cup.
I want it from a diner. I want it from McDonald's. I want it from like an old pot, preferably that's been sitting out for 4 hours. I don't care. I like. And look, we've gone to really nice coffee places together. I mean, we all went to a really fancy one in Japan, in Tokyo. That was great. Like, I can appreciate it. It was very interesting and complex flavors and all this kind of stuff. I had a coffee from China. I didn't know China had coffee. It's amazing. They grow coffee. But my comfort coffee would just be, I'm like, that's what's so versatile is I can just drink whatever. I don't care. As long as it's black and I don't care. And it's warm. So, and I don't know. I just feel like it makes me in some way more like a salt of the earth and maybe, not so pretentious and not so whatever. Like,
calling his guest pretentious.
Chris, do you have like a regular coffee maker? Like a coffee mate?
Gordon knows. Well, okay. So, to give context, here at home, we actually had an espresso machine. And so, you grind your beans, put it in the thingy. I used to be a barista, if you can believe it or not, but those days are long gone. But put it in the press, push it down, mash it down. Yeah, whatever it is. And we had that and it was fine. But now it's like a lot of work when you're trying to get your kids to school. So we got an espresso. Simple, easy, fake. It's expensive, but that works great. So, because I'm drinking it right now. I'm not picky. This is Stormio from Nespresso. Nespresso, the best coffee for any YouTuber to start their day podcasting with.
Oh yeah, not sponsored by Nespresso. Jordan, wrap us up.
I'm going to keep it quick. I sit right in the middle. I do care about the coffee, but yeah, I've just got like a Ninja drip coffee maker that I bought because most of them will do 12 cups, but this sucker will do 16. So that's...
Yeah, you just want lots.
I want the most coffee with the least effort I can get in the morning, but I do get Kicking Horse Kick-Ass coffee, which is great stuff.
It's pretty good.
Here from British Columbia. That is my default one. But when I'm on a trip, I need coffee to function. I can't go out and get good coffee. So I room coffee it, which I'm embarrassed to admit. But whatever they've got, if it's an espresso or, some bag coffee, some crystals, I pour into a glass coffee. I have to do it. And then I go out pursuing a better cup of coffee. Hopefully Gordon or Jaron are there. But I do slum it just to get out of bed.
That's the thing. I don't have to be embarrassed about drinking instant coffee if I have it, right? And honestly, there have been times it's great to go with Gordon on these hunts. I mean, it is fun, but sometimes we have to go on a hunt. Like, he won't just drink hotel
multiple
coffee.
Train stops usually.
Yeah, and he's taken us on some adventures. Like Barcelona, I remember that was fun, but that was wild.
They were good ones. I took you to a really obscure one in Japan as well.
You did, and that was amazing. That was so cool.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But would I do that every day? No. Now, if I can ask questions, so then what do you guys, is there a particular brand or process used for your coffee enemas?
I stick with the same brand.
I'm not dignifying that with a response.
Okay, because that's where I go to the AeroPress. Anyways, we can move on.
That was jumbo, right, Chris?
I was feeling so good about that intro right up till the tail end. I guess we should what do you think, Jaron? Start the show now?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Hey everybody, as the holiday season draws near, now is the perfect time to purchase gifts that will bring joy, not sadness or malice, to your loved ones. We want to bring joy. And if you're ready to spoil yourself for someone special with an incredible camera deal, we got the best winter offer waiting for you. Right now, OM System is offering Black Friday pricing, and you don't want to miss it. For a limited time, the OM System EM10 Mark IV is available for $299.99 off its regular price of $999.98. Right now, you can grab the camera for just $699.99. Plus, when you buy the camera body, you'll get the M.Zuiko 14-42 version 2 lens for free. That's a smoking deal. The EM10 Mark IV is a great pick for both beginners and experienced photographers. It's super portable, packed with awesome features, and delivers amazing image quality. Whether you're snapping everyday moments or capturing your next adventure, this camera's got you covered. And if you're looking to expand your lens collection and pick up a few more lenses, OM System has some other great deals. The M.Zuiko 40-150 f4-5.6 is now $70 off, priced at $129.99.
That's basically
you can get
free.
A lens for that's like old Canon fantastic plastic pricing, and this thing zooms down from its regular retail price of $200. Or if you're after a telephoto lens, the M.Zuiko 75-300 f4.8-6.7.2 is $200 off. It's $350 marked down from $550. These are just a few of the amazing deals from OM System. So whether you're upgrading your gear, gifting the perfect camera to a loved one, or adding a new lens to your photography kit, OM System's Black Friday pricing is the perfect opportunity to save. Don't wait to take advantage of these incredible deals. Visit your local authorized OM System retailer or head to explore.omsystem.com/petapixel today.
Thanks to OM System for sponsoring the PetaPixel Podcast. Let's talk about why we didn't have a podcast last week. I actually had a brief, insane idea that we would try and do this in New York. I'm very glad that you immediately talked me out of it.
There would not have been an A12 episode at Embargo if we decided to go ahead with that.
Yeah, actually, it's Gordon who said, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And so
it is Gordon's fault.
Thank you, Gordon, for talking. It's fault. It's our benefit. So we get to do it like a little bit more relaxed this week. Last week, Sony announced the A12 and the 28-70 f2 GM. Do you guys have any thoughts on either of these now that you've seen what other people have said that you may want to bring up or anything like that? What do you overall, where do you think Sony did with these that on top of mind?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I kind of want to save it for when we're talking about Sony's grade because that's relevant, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, but that being said, I mean, it is interesting that this is the first flagship to be updated from all the companies, right? I mean, Sony kind of arguably started the whole mirrorless flagship camera with the original A1. So very interesting, very expected unexpected, I guess, and very, very impressive. But I get why there's controversy for it. I think we should talk about that in a bit. As far as the lens goes, I love it. I love it. I want it. It's like my favorite. I want it.
Is this your official favorite zoom of like standard zoom of all time? Where are you sitting with this thing?
Yeah, it may be
so
because
happy.
I know. I love that focal length with the fast aperture. Not because I'm a fast aperture junkie. I'm really not. Like I've said many times, I'm happy with versatile f4 lenses, but I like more than anything. I like the idea of just having like one lens and one camera. That really that gets me off in a big way. I like the minimalism, be able to go out with just one thing, not even take a camera bag. I really like that. And yeah, well, so yeah. And so this 28-70 f2, yeah, it just gets me off all over the place. It's so good. Because like having a bag of primes, it's sharp. There's distortion, no doubt. And that is something that gets corrected digitally. We see that a lot. So yeah, your corners suffer a little bit. But you know, for the idea of just walking around, shooting on the street and stuff, I love it. It gives me the focal length range that I can use for a lot of photography, and you can back up. You can back up if you need wider. You can walk in closer if you need tighter. So for me, it'd be like that one. If you were only going to have one lens, that would probably be
Desert Island lens.
Something like that. I love the Canon. It's not a brand thing. I love the Canon RF version for the exact same reasons, but the Sony is smaller and lighter and maybe even a little bit better.
I have two things I actually want to bring up for you, Chris, on this. Thank you for reminding me. One of them is there were some visible onion ringing in the bokeh on the shot of me from Japan, and you didn't mention it in the video, and it's been mentioned in the comments a few times. So I wanted to bring it up since we might not get to a comment section this week. Is there a reason that went unmentioned?
Yeah, I was paid $86,000 by Sony to not mention any onion rings. So, which is great because it's Christmas time and I need to get gifts for my kids. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm upset about it. I didn't say it and I should have, but I'm going to drive my brand new car thanks to Sony. So that's so now people are like, I knew it. No, they're pretty minor, but yes, I just, I looked at it and I guess I just didn't mention it. I forgot to mention it because they're not major and there's no major soap bubble effect and the bokeh doesn't really suffer from it. But yes, there were some onion rings in there and I probably just forgot. It happens.
Yeah, it was specifically in that portrait example of Jaron. It was definitely not as noticeable in other images, which makes me almost wonder if it had something to do with those particular light fixtures. But
maybe.
It's tough to say.
And look, if we were trying to cover it up, we wouldn't have showed the photo.
It's not the cleanest.
Yeah.
It's not the cleanest in its rendering, I found. Not as good as I wanted it to be. Still very good. Yeah. But not quite as good. Certainly, if you want to go down the prime route on their most recent G Master primes, you're going to probably get some nicer looking bokeh from them.
Right. Yes.
But still, for what it is, it's a zoom with an f2 focal ratio. It's still a really nice lens.
The second thing I want to bring up, I was sitting in that presentation that Sony did, the live one that they were streaming, and I was in that extremely cramped chair. And I couldn't help but hear that they claimed full optical corrections of those corners. So it's sharp from edge to edge. And I was like,
I don't
know if that's true. And I don't know why you would say that when it's going to be obviously provable that that's not correct.
Yeah, and look, one. I saw the raw files. They can't edit the raw files or open them, but I did see some of the raw file renderings, and the distortion is obscene. And then it gets corrected. And then again, this is something we see from many, many lens manufacturers as a way to focus on other things like sharpness and corrections for flare and that kind of stuff. So it's got distortion and it is being corrected digitally. And
I don't know why they would say otherwise. I don't quite understand.
I don't know. Because I'm sure they still did something optically to make the corners as good as possible, but that doesn't mean they're not using digital correction to get those corners back to straight. And their corners aren't terrible, but they're not sharp like the center is, and that's Mark even stopping down to 5.6 or f8, like the corners get better, but they're never as good as the center.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk more about Sony in a bit. Plenty of time for that. Let's correct the record here. Tamron is not closing the door on making prime lenses.
Oh, thank God.
It was a misconstrued quote out of France, and we got a new quote from that guy that I'll read to you here what he says, and then I'll basically summarize what the actual truth behind this is.
In French.
I can't say it in French. He sent
yes,
it to me in English.
Do you speak any French?
Do you, Gordon?
Could you then just do like a really offensive French accent, like a Parisian accent?
I just did. I do it with a Northern English accent, and it sounds terrible. So no, I better not.
I thought. Sorry, I just thought as a cultural thing, like a historical thing. Isn't it like a law in the UK that you're not allowed to speak French or like the French or go to France for very long or something like that, and vice versa? I don't know. Maybe that was when I was a kid. I don't know.
Maybe that was just in your head, Chris.
Oh, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going down that path.
Veering us back onto the road here. The president of Tamron, France, Jean-Christophe Thierry. I'm going to go Thierry, Thiry. He says, what I wish to convey is that concentrating on zoom lenses has been our recent strategy as we look to boost our lens selection in the mirrorless market and leverage our ingenuity and our expertise producing unique, exciting, and useful zoom lenses to the mirrorless market across several camera mounts. Tamron will always consider what the market is demanding and react accordingly. To the extent Tamron will introduce prime lenses has not been disclosed to me, and since I am not in a position to definitively comment on what products will be introduced in the future, I did not and could not indicate that we would not be introducing prime lenses. My comment was misinterpreted, and I appreciate this opportunity to clear it up. Yeah, basically this tracks. Essentially, nobody outside of Japan, of any of these manufacturers, has any idea what any of these companies are going to do next. Yes. They don't even tell their own employees what their product map is because they are so secretive. So this makes sense. I was willing to take him at his word last time, the way it sounded, that he sounded very definitive that no, prime lenses aren't the focus. But even if he had said that, he wouldn't actually know. He has no clue what Tamron Japan is planning on doing. And so, yeah, it's what you can take away from this is we know nothing now that we didn't know before. Everything's exactly the same.
It's good news. Yeah. It's good news to hear this because, we love their primes. We want them to make more primes. They've always made beautiful primes in the past, and I would love to see a lot more of those come to the mirrorless market. So,
I don't have to let my dream die of the 45 1.8 macro lens. Thank God.
It's a good lens.
Yeah. So, all right.
I'd like to see him make a fast 85. I'm assuming,
Gordon, since you don't review Tamron lenses.
Well, I saw the 90 macro. That was quite recent, wasn't it?
Very recent. Beautiful.
Yeah. You saw it? You reviewed
it? Great. No, I just saw it. I didn't test it. My guy in Germany, Thomas, he tested it. So that's on the Camera Labs website. And he liked it. I remember actually the Tamron SP Adaptor 2 version of that. I had that lens when, crikey, I'm thinking late 80s in an M42 fit. You remember the Adaptor 2? You could actually change the mount on it. And even then, it was a legendary specification, I think, a 90mm. I want to say 2.4 actually, or 2.5, something like that. But it was nice. Yeah, really nice. Looking for another one actually of those. Just thought I'd put that out there.
Just have it?
An Adaptor 2. I want to get hold of one. Relive those.
We recommend Cage.com. They're the official pre-owned camera gear partner of PetaPixel.
Oh, good. That's good to know. Thank you.
Next story is one that shouldn't surprise anyone because this company does not care what your rules are. They're going to do what they want. Yongnuo. How would you say it, Chris?
I'm not Chinese. I don't know.
I say Yongnuo.
Yeah.
Yongnuo.
Anyway, I know you're not Chinese, but you're usually good at pronunciation is why.
Jordan is not Chinese, just in case anybody was wondering.
Oh, thanks for clearing that up.
Okay, just because some people are listening and they're not watching, so just so you know.
Okay. Well, they teased a 35mm f1.8 prime lens that they are advertising with the very well-known three-letter word art. That there's no way they didn't just see Sigma has been doing real well with this one word. We should try tossing that word on there. It's going to be for APS-C cameras, E, X, and Z mounts.
Shots fired across the China Sea. Oof.
They may make it for RF mount because they've done it before and completely ignored Canon and telling them they shouldn't. But you guys did one where they did. You had an RF mount autofocus lens. They didn't give a crap.
I did a little bit of digging into that, and the reason that it looks like how they're getting around this is I was complaining you had to actually push a button on the lens to take it off of the lens mount. If you push the button on the camera, it wouldn't actually come off of it. So it's not technically RF mount because it doesn't bayonet off with the. So this seems to be the loophole. I don't know if that's why, but it makes sense. I was that was the thinking behind it.
First off, I don't know why it always has to be a 35. That sucks. Why can't it be a 50? But it reminds me, back in the SLR days, the first Yongnuo lens I ever saw, it was a copy of the Canon AF 50mm 1.8, the Nifty 50. I mean, which was already a cheap lens, and Yongnuo was like, we'll make it even cheaper. And it was a straight up ripoff, like physical body, dimensions, everything the same. I'm sure the optical formula was the same. And it was hilarious because we sold a ton of them, and they put a protective film over the front element of plastic, but it was like so perfectly on there. It didn't have ripples or anything that you basically didn't notice. And people were taking this lens and shooting on their cameras and returning them because it's soft and blurry. What gives? I don't know. And then you peel off the plastic and give it back to them. And they're like, and it turned out to be basically identical to the originals. I don't think the coatings were quite as good, but I mean, it was a sharp lens. So they've been at this game for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, they ripped off Canon's speed lights. Like, they basically made speed lights not a thing you would buy first party from anymore. This was the company that was like, we'll just sell you a $60 one, and thumbs up.
So who thinks the next lenses that they're going to bring out will have sport and contemporary badges? Because I think that would be the...
It'll say sports and contemplation. That'll be the two lists.
We could not find anywhere where Sigma actually has copyrighted or trademarked those words. It's difficult to parse Japan's patenting system, so it's possible they did. We couldn't find it, but if they do a sport and then contemplation, I don't think that's technically suable, but boy,
sporty. It'll be sporty and contemplation.
Sporty, I like that. Sporty.
Yeah. Can you? Can you trademark the word art when you're in a field of art? Like, I don't know if you actually can. Who knows?
Brand confusion, possibly. You could argue.
Certainly. I mean, look, Yongnuo knows exactly what they're doing, and I think it's hilarious. And I do want to play with it. I mean, well, not the 35, but whatever else they come out with next.
I'll take the 35 out.
Well, it's a bit like putting a red ring around your lens, isn't it?
Yeah. Does anyone else do that?
I don't think a third party has yet.
Well, anyway.
Apparently, if you look close enough. I want... By the way, Chris, that wouldn't be a 35 because it's an APS-C lens. So you can put that on your APS-C camera. Now. It will treat you as if it wasn't 35.
Oh, thank all the gods, every single one of them, all the ones that exist.
Second to last story of the week, Leica just recorded the highest revenue it has ever made in its 100 years of existence.
Yeah, and by a big margin.
Yeah, 14% higher than last year, which was also a record year for them. So they are doing spectacularly well, although I'm not getting the information of their actual profit. This is just revenue. But I have to imagine it's fine. As a company, I don't think their margins are bad. So, but 554 million euros over last year's already great 485 million euro year. So they're doing good. Thoughts? Anything?
I mean, they've always been just so confident.
Them. Yeah.
Oh, we are
going to talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a good. The last thing I'll say on this, and we will get to that. But the main revenue driver this year was the Q3. So keep that in mind as we move on to the final thing of the week. DJI this morning, as we're recording, announced a new 10-gram wireless microphone called the MicMini. Wow. It is really tiny. Yeah. Jordan has one, but he hasn't unboxed it yet, so I'm sure we'll hear from him eventually. But this thing is small, and these mics keep getting smaller.
Yeah, I think we're going to just check in with regular audio solutions. We're seeing so many of them coming out this time of the year, which makes sense. Like, they're perfect Christmas gift and fall right into that price range as well. But I like the idea of a smaller one that can still record right on device. But I don't have a ton of info, and I'm going to play with it. Just going forward, I think we'll do a check-in with the audio solutions. I'm just testing Sennheiser's latest right now. And we've got some other... I got the new Rode that we were using for some vertical video. So, yes, I will have thoughts, but I haven't had a chance to do full reviews on any of these guys yet.
Very well.
My main thought every time you see these kind of ones, which are designed to be worn like on the lapel or magnet, like right on a shirt or a lanyard or something like that.
Don't hold them, for the love of God, people. But go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, don't hold. Although I don't know if you actually could hold this thing without covering all the stuff that you need to not cover. But, they typically... I wouldn't say typically. I'm curious, like, is it going to handle wind? Is it going to handle, bumping and flapping on a shirt and stuff like that? They are insanely convenient, but I've often found in the past with mics like this, they're insanely convenient if conditions are perfect. Not necessarily where you need to wear like a heavy jacket or you've got a windy outdoor kind of situation. I mean, all the sample photos are these happy-go-lucky creators, with sunny days and no wind and stuff. And I mean, and sure, it'll do a good job.
We want to demonstrate the awful truth of how these microphones are going to be used by creators. No one wants to think about that.
These are designed to be dirt cheap, and they integrate with I think they directly integrate with DJI's like the pocket. Yeah. So and it's $89. Like, that's why these are going to sell.
Yeah.
Because they'll give you better audio than not a microphone, and they're cheap.
100%.
Yeah.
And the connection 100%. On those, like we've used it with the previous versions of the DJI, and it's wonderful just to have that flexibility. So
it's funny to go from one that has great connectivity, and then you'll use one that has like trash connectivity. And you can't go more than like 10 feet in a straight sight line, and it just like cuts out. Yeah, those days are normally behind us, but there are still exceptions.
I mean, Gordon, have you played with those kind of microphones, like the little ones, like without having lapel mic things or dead cats or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, if you've seen any of my videos, I never wear a shirt. I always wear a T-shirt. So I never have a lapel to attach a lav mic to. So they always seem compromised to me. What I used to do with the Rode wireless mics is I would put it here underneath my shirt. So it's like pressing against my kind of chest or my throat. Mm-hmm. Partly also to cover up. I'd never really liked the way they looked, and they lit up, and they were kind of a bit obvious. I could never position, the bottom line is I could never position them very well on the clothes that I wear. So maybe they should sell them with a shirt with the ideal lapel that's really stiff on one side, really well, really
you can
firm,
make
so it doesn't
you can make about. Camera Labs creator shirts designed
exactly
to
right.
Just with a tiny
10%.
Little pouch right in the middle of the sternum. I was going
to offer you 15, 10 I'm happy
Son
with.
of a...
Let's do it. I know.
But British sterling, right? British sterling.
Okay. That's to be negotiated. Yeah, you can have 10% of the sterling or 10% of the dollar. It's up to you, mate. I think it's the same.
All right, so with the news behind us, let's get to the meat of today's episode, where we're going to grade every camera maker's 2024. The way this is going to go is we're going to do it in order. It's going to go Gordon, Chris, and then Jordan. They're going to give their grades. Before they grade, I will remind them of their grade the previous time we did this, which was 5 or 6 months ago, and we'll compare where they have gone since. So the first one we're going to do, it's funny, I went back and listened to our podcast, and we were talking about like the R1 being announced, and now we know more about it.
Yeah.
Yep. So we know everything that Canon's got. So Gordon, your grade for Canon in the middle of the year was a C-. Where are they this year for you now at the end? You
want the rating straight away, or you want the chat?
I think you can do it however you want.
I'm going to do the chat. I'm going to make you wait. They had a quiet start to the year. They were just, they teased the R1, made it official, and they released their first hybrid lens, first hybrid prime lens, the 35 1.4 LVCM. That was about it. So I rated them a C originally, but then a very strong second half as we expected, because they released the R1 and the R5 II simultaneously. And the R5 II, I feel could be one of the more underrated cameras out there right now, because I think so many people enjoyed having a go at Canon for the original R5 because it overheated and because it skewed more than we wanted it to, although they never said that it wouldn't do that. And it just felt like everyone was really knocking it. And we should definitely hold companies to account. That's what we do, all of us. But there was a certain kind of joy to it I felt on a lot of videos. It's like, let's get Canon. They've messed up in some way. And I feel the R5 II has resolved a lot of that. I've already done quite a lot of overheating tests with it. Admittedly, it's not hot where I live, especially coming into winter. But so far, I've only got it to overheat when recording 8K or 4K 120, and it recorded like over an hour of both of them. And in any of the 4K modes, including the oversampled 4K fine, well over an hour, no problem, until basically my cards filled up before overheating became an issue. So it resolved that. They put a stack sensor in it. It doesn't skew as much as before. Still skews a bit. They all do, but it's better than it was before. And then just nobody really said much about it. I felt that people were like, let's move on. Let's find something else. And then the A1 II came out, and I'll talk about that more when we get to Sony, but they come out with a kind of very mild refresh over the A1, proving that how good the A1 already was, but still ask $6,500 for it. And yet the R5 II is coming in at $4,000. This is in dollars. And it suddenly, I was looking at it and thinking, and then remembering that it's got that eye control viewfinder like the R1, and thinking this is actually a very strong proposition. I'll see what you guys think, but I'm in the middle of doing a kind of real in-depth look at a final production one. I had a final production one in a few weeks ago to test one of the lenses I'll talk about now. And it performed really well. The autofocus is really, really good. It was detecting stuff very far away and it's very small on the frame. Sony had to be way bigger. I had both that and the A1 at the same time. So the R5 II, the R1, we had two more hybrid prime lenses, the 24 and the 50 1.4, both looking identical to the 35 1.4, which therefore cements that as Canon's design. Like it or not, like the fact that it's got a clickless, smooth aperturing. I personally don't like that. It should have been clickable and declickable, but that's what they've done. They've now got it on 3 lenses. That's the way it's going to be. I don't think they're going to change that. Yeah. Yes, it will work for photo on newish bodies, but it's horrible using a smooth aperture ring. So then they say, well, just use the ring on the end. In Canon's world, in Canon's head, they've not had aperture rings since EF was released in the late 80s. So, Canon users are like a bit nonplussed about it. But for us, we review all the different systems. We see Sony doing it, Sigma doing it, now Fujifilm, I think, doing it. And you're like, oh, actually, that's quite a nice feature to have. So it annoys me they don't have it, but I think Canon people couldn't care less. But it has sort of cemented that design. So I would maybe expect an 85 in the future that looks similar. We got a new 70-200 2.8 Z because it's a hybrid zoom. They don't have a P or a P on the end of the prime, so that still makes no sense to me. That resolves the two issues that people had with the original shrinking 70-200 RF lens, in that it doesn't extend. It stays the same length. So people who were worried about environmental sealing should be less worried. And it now, I think more importantly, takes teleconverters, and it's such a high resolution lens. I found it worked really well with the TC. So a lot of people very happy about that. Apart from those who bought the first one and they go, that first one is still a great lens, guys, and it's cheaper and there'll be deals on it in, tomorrow or whatever. Look out for it. It's going to be great. So then they just keep doing more and more of these VR lenses. I've lost count of them. Let's have another one. Let's not actually tell you through the normal channels. Let's do it through a presentation with another company.
Apple do it.
With Apple. Yeah. And then there were more. They kind of teased some at CP Plus. They all became realities in the second half of the year. Lesser known, but also the QX20, the latest selfie printer, which has got two major upgrades. First, it will do borderless printing on 3 of the borders, obviously not the one where the printer holds the paper. And it will do credit card size prints and square prints. So it's effectively an Instax Mini and an Instax Square printer at the same time. Fujifilm forces you to choose only one shape. Canon lets you have 2, and they have sticky backs on the prints. I think it's a really nice printer. I've reviewed that. So, and the C80 cinema camera. They had an extremely strong second half. I was going to give them an A+, but I'm going to knock them down to an A or even a B+ for still shenaniganing us, if that's a word, us around over third-party full-frame lenses. Every time I talk to Canon, they go, "Oh, it's not us, it's Sigma. They don't want to do it." And every time I talk to Sigma, they go, "It's not us."
They actually blame Sigma? I want to make this clear how insane that is.
They look at me as if they look at me as if the problem lies elsewhere. Which I'm sure is not the case.
That is an absolute lie. They're lying to your face.
Well, what can I say? When I'm interviewing them or talking to them, I'm saying, look, when I talk to the third-party companies, they seem keen to make lenses for you, but then they kind of clam up. I don't know. It's as if there's some sort of hidden micro. I'm feeling a bit
they don't want to upset anyone. They want to be on the good graces. So these third-party companies aren't gonna smack talk.
So they're being very respectful and staying sort of quiet. But really, honestly, guys, sort it out. Because when we look at the 50 1.4 L VCM, nice lens, but $1,500 or pound lens. And then the next one down from that is like the nifty 50-50, right? Which is a couple of hundred. We need something in the middle. Oh, if only there was a really nice $800 or so 50mm 1.4. If only. Yes, there is. Sigma make it. Let us have it.
Badge on it.
And if people want to spend $1,500, great. They'll get the Canon one, and it has only permanently smooth aperturing. Hooray!
Yongnuo will take care of us. Don't worry about it. It's in the cards.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I would say a very high rating for Canon, marred only by the fact that you can still only mostly get, for full frame, because we're coming on to Sigma, for full frame, we need some third-party lenses with AF that are official and allowed.
Yeah. All right, Chris, you're up.
Very comprehensive, Gordon. Thank you. I mean,
thank you.
All I would add, I think last year I gave them a B. And I think it would stay about there. I feel like I've become a Canon apologist in the second half of this year. And part of it is because the R5 Mark II, which is, as we talked about, a great camera. Good. And I wish it got more. I don't think it's getting the fanfare either. I agree. But, on the minus, the third party stuff, which you covered for sure, I was like, maybe I'll go B- this year because the third party. And the R1 is a good camera, but it's expensive. Everybody's giving Sony A1 a hard time, but like the Canon R1 is basically the same price. And it's so specialized. But at the same time, I was like, well, maybe I'll give them a B+ because they have been coming out with lots of glass, which is always positive. Maybe not the glass we all want, but it's good to see that. Mm-hmm. And the sensor technology has gotten better. And that is something that I gave them a hard time for in our last talk, is that, their sensor tech seems always behind and slow. And this year, like that R1, the R5 Mark II, they're good sensors. It's really nice to see good quality sensors, fast scanning sensors. And at the same time too, the R1, as much as it's a specialized camera, it is a fantastic camera. Like it is a great camera. It handles beautifully. I love the body design. It might be my favorite body design of all the flagship cameras right now. The focusing is very quick. Canon have done a huge job improving their autofocus very effectively. And the only detraction I would say is, the megapixels is not even a detraction. Like, for what it's made for, it's perfect. And it does leave the door open for maybe a higher megapixel version. The only detraction, which I found quite strange, was the eye control autofocus worked so well for me on the R3, and it doesn't work well for me on the R1 or the R5 Mark II. And that's weird because they specifically updated it to work better and it works worse. So that's really disconcerting. Plus the fact that it still seems random based on, I don't know, your genetics or who knows. I have no idea whether it'll even work for you or not. So nobody knows. Nobody knows. Canon doesn't. Nobody knows. But anyways, you covered a lot. So I'm going to stick again with a B. I was going to go B+, then I was going to go B-, and I'm like, oh, the golf camera, that would make it an A+. And I'm like, wait, I don't golf, so forget that. So B.
I was pretty hard on them last time. I went with a C-. And I was very impressed by the R5 too. And honestly, I should be over the moon because basically every release except the R1 was extremely video-centric this year. And the R1's still a capable video camera, but yeah, looking at the R5 too, basically all of their glass is optimized for video. But I really think they need to start putting some emphasis back on stills at the same time. I know they're trying to flesh that line out, but just like Gordon says, we need mid-budget stuff. I think that's got to happen. Yeah, for all of you photographers out there, I'm in your court. And I do think as well, I have to ding them because the R1, as the flagship camera, the definition of flagship has shifted since the A1 came out. It is a top-of-the-line camera that can do everything. And the closest thing they have is the R5 too, to be honest, right now. So yeah, I was quite disappointed when the R1 was initially announced, even though, Chris had a great time shooting sports with it. But just weird omissions like that classic Canon thing, like why are there waveforms on the R5 too, but not the R1? What's going on with that? Trying to pull a hot shoe cover off for several minutes? Just weird, frustrating things like that. So I'm giving them a bump. They're going from a C- to a B-. And again, I am very frustrated with the third-party lens thing as well.
Wow, yeah, 100%. What? Actually, they fixed their hot shoes, so that's why I didn't ding them on that. It actually comes off now.
I had the experience of trying to remove it on the press event, which was both frustrating and, frankly, embarrassing in front of all of my peers.
Yeah, everybody's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, no. And then Rudy even tried. He's like, oh, this isn't coming off. I'm like, yeah, Rudy, it's not.
Oh, yeah, wait. No, I forgot about Rudy. D- Canon.
So for what it's worth, actually, I was told this. I haven't seen anything officially announced, but I know it's true. Rudy was asked to come back on a consultation contracting basis. So he is once again working with Canon. So I think they at least admitted that was a mistake, at least to some degree. Before we move on to Fujifilm, what I want to say about Canon is I think a lot of their problems, and it's been this way for several years now, are of their own making. Mm-hmm. The way that they release their products and the way that they release their products makes it harder for them. Why release the R5 II and the R1 together? That made no sense, because the R1, I know they knew it was going to be disappointing.
Yeah, the disappointment from that absolutely bled over on.
Yeah, it really made it hard to focus on how good the R5 Mark II was, is because the R1 was disappointing. And and like the R3 should never have been the R3. You should have just made that the R1. Like, I know you were planning on doing it at that point, Canon. So it's just like they've done, and then the lens situation. The whole, you can't use that aperture ring in photo mode unless you have an R1 or an R5 Mark II. Otherwise, it doesn't work, is insane. Like, some of these choices they make don't make any sense from like a human standpoint. And it's just very frustrating then to have to continue to talk about Canon and then also have these things lingering in the back of your mind. So yeah, like if you try and get rid of all of that and just look at these things objectively as they are, it's easier to be happy with Canon. It's just that as a company, they're frustrating. All right, Fujifilm. Gordon, you were very pleased with Fujifilm at the midpoint of the year. Has anything changed?
Yes, they had a super strong start. I mean, X106, GFX 100S2, XT50, Instax White 400, the Lee Play, which I didn't mention last time, also came out in that time frame. Mini 99, which is one of their nicest. So you couldn't ask for a stronger start. I think there was a new lens as well. Second half, not so much. I counted 2 products. Well,
we got a camera, 2 lenses.
Yeah, we've got a Mini Link 3, which is the latest version of their Instax Mini printer, which strangely, the Mini Link 2 had a little light that you could light paint with, which I only ever did at their launch event, and it was great fun, but I didn't use that again. But they've taken it off, the Mini Link 3. So if you want to do the light painting, look for a great holiday deal on the Mini Link 2. The XM5 was their kind of major camera launch, I guess, for people like me. It's a video vlogging content creator targeted camera, which for me means, number 1, I'm looking for killer autofocus. Number 2, I'm looking for killer stabilization. And number 3, I'm looking for something that's going to be a DJI Osmo Pocket 3. And I'm not sure it necessarily does that. I've only tested a pre-production, so I've not given the AF and the stabilization a thorough workout, but unless they've improved it from previous versions, it's not their strong point. Hopefully it has. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'll test it and it'll be great. But for me, I just think cameras like that, and also the Sony ZV-E10 II, which we'll come to, they're just kind of, I feel that DJI now has solved this problem. You know, and these other cameras, I don't know who's using them. I don't know, or rather, I don't know who would use them instead of something like an Osmo Pocket. I know they were like, oh no, vloggers, content creators, that's the growth market. I'll say one very positive thing for the XM5 because it was also, I think, their most affordable X series camera. A lot of people are like, oh, it hasn't got viewfinder. Oh, it hasn't got IBIS. And it's like, yes, but it's their cheapest X series camera, at least in the current lineup. It is very affordable for a Fujifilm camera. But here's the thing, it actually looks really nice, especially from the top. It's got these kind of symmetrical dials. I think it's a great looking camera. A lot of people looked at it and went, oh, I no longer need to wait for my X100V order, V6, V6, V, whatever, whichever number you're trying to get. Your 6 or your V from like 3 years ago, still can't get it. I'll get this instead and put a pancake on it. And then, oh no, it's not got IBIS or it's not got viewfinder. It's not meant to be that. But it is nice. So yes, and then they announced a GFX cinema camera, didn't they? But
the Eterna.
They launched it in a really weird way. I didn't really officially hear about it. I only really came across it through, I think, Cine D's video about it. So I would say kind of a disappointing second half, which makes me have high expectations for next year because we still don't have an X Pro. Right, which makes me think they'll skip this current sensor and processor generation. X Pro will probably launch, I'm just guessing here, their next big sensor upgrade. I think there's going to be some interesting things next year, but for the second half of this year. I mean, what did I give him, Jaron?
Well, you gave them an A. So what you still have to do is you're not grading just the second half. You're grading the entirety of 2024.
Well,
so
I'd say still super strong then, because they had such a strong first half. I think I'd have to give them a B plus, maybe even like an A minus. Because the first half was so strong.
Yeah.
There you go, Fujifilm. Sorted.
Well, it's, again, very good. So I'm going to go with a B minus. I'll give my grade right off the start. And I think I gave them a B minus last year, or maybe a B. So, and I think it's mostly because what I've seen released as a photographer doesn't seem to be catering to me. And you made really good points about the DJI Pocket 3 and the XM5. For me, the biggest thing, I mean, IBIS, but nobody has IBIS at that price point in an APS-C camera. It doesn't exist. So what I was really missing out on was an EVF. And I think like, if the Pocket 3 is going to destroy just kill the market, like take over and just win, what we would really want then is a camera that can be that hybrid, because the Pocket 3 is not a photo taker. You know what I mean? And so the XM5 is so sexy. I actually found the controls to be really nice for such an affordable camera. And if it had an EVF, that would have made it this like wonderful little walk around camera for me. And I could see the benefit of having that. And then great, have good video as well. Charge me another $150. I don't care. Like, I think it would have been good to have that. So that was disappointing. I do want to say, I'll leave video autofocus for Jordan, but I think Fujifilm gets a bad rap when it comes to autofocus in general. Their stills autofocus isn't bad. It's not world class, but at this price point, it's great for photography. So again, why the EVF missing means I'm not going to really use this camera. And frankly, I'm getting older. I need an EVF. The new 500mm is great. You know, the 1655 is great. I mean, we're the pre-pro that we tested, but you can tell when a lens is still going to be good. And so I think those are great positive moves, to have. I'm kind of upset we didn't get an advanced Instax wide. The 400 was fine, but I don't care what they say. It's not hard to make. You know what I mean? Like, these aren't advanced cameras. The guts are the same. It's not hard to make. So why didn't we get the LED lights in there, which was so cool on the Mini 99? Why don't we have a version which has the bells and whistles? It can't be that hard to do. Still no X Pro 4. That's fine. I never loved that platform, but I know a lot of people did. So I think Fujifilm did a good job. It's been a good year for them. But that last half for me personally was kind of like, meh, there's not much in there. So yeah, B minus. I'm going to stick around that.
Okay, I had a B plus before, and my two complaints were we really need to get some X series glass going again, which they did partially address. The new 16-55 is very, very light, like shockingly light. I thought it may have been F4 or a toy when I first picked it up, but yeah, the performance on it was actually quite nice. But really, that was it. And then my other concern was just a general lack of R&D. It seemed like they were just trickling a lot of stuff down. We hadn't seen much new. Really, the only thing I can think of is the IBIS mechanism on the X106. That is probably something developed from scratch. Look at the XM5 as well. It's just features from higher models being brought down. Even that 500 millimeter lens is just a GF lens that already exists. They slapped an X mount on the back of it. So I'm really hoping to see new stuff. And then the GFX Eterna announcement further, I'm like, well, it's the same sensor as the GFX 102, which we said, like, that sensor's too slow for shooting video. It either has to do some binning, skipping, or cropping in order to deliver high resolution footage. So exact same thing again. That would have been the perfect platform to be like, look, we've got a 50 megapixel medium format sensor that can scan the whole thing, or something like that. But they haven't done it. So I'm a little concerned on that front. I want to see some new developments from Fujifilm in 2025. So I'm keeping their grade the same, B plus for me.
So I'm looking as a sort of an explanation of why you're not necessarily getting what you want, Jordan. And that's the numbers. Instax, they don't have to make anything new, Chris. They don't have to give you anything that you want because it makes up 61.3% of their entire operating income for that segment.
But that's why you should.
And
it's so easy.
They reached a record high revenue this last quarter, up 9.1% over the previous one. And also, specifically in just their digital, that went up 17% too, even though that makes up a fraction of what Instax does. That's also more popular. And that's probably because the X106, they sell them as soon as they make them.
Yeah.
And I think what Fujifilm's strategy will probably be is to make a camera like that every year. They will have something that will be very popular that they literally cannot produce enough of, and they will sell that out for 1 to 2 years, no problem. So I don't think we'll see the X100VI on shelves ready to purchase because on a whim, even all of next year. I still think they will sell them as soon as they arrive every single time. And I think we will get something next year that will do the exact same thing, and those will have an overlap. And Fujifilm will continue to be an extremely successful company because of it. Yes, Gordon?
I just wanted to add one more thing, which is what I'd really like to see from Fujifilm and other camera companies are some high quality small lenses. Just start doing those again. I mean, it's been ages since we had those XF-F2 and 2.8 lenses from Fujifilm. The 35 was really nice. The 23 was not, which is a shame because it's the 23 you need if you want to try and replicate your own interchangeable lens version of an X100. Just update those lenses already. I love the 1.4s. They're great quality. You know, like people say, what's your favorite Fujifilm lens? I think the 23 1.4 LM is great, and the 30s or thereabouts. But they're too big. I don't want to put that on an XT50 or an XM5. I want to put the little lens on there, but I don't want to compromise the quality. I'm happy to compromise the aperture. I don't care if it's f2, maybe even 2.8. I just want it to be top quality and small. And I want that from all the companies. I want them from Canon, Sony, everybody, but especially Fujifilm.
I don't think I would complain about an f2.8 as a guy who's been shooting on like 400 speed film at its fastest, and f2.8 is also my fastest aperture. I would be perfectly happy being able to go to 1600 at 2.8. That would be just fine by me. All right, moving on to Leica. Gordon, you do not review Leica, so you may abstain. Which but oh, that's right. You do have. Yes, you do something. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So give your thoughts on it.
I reviewed the Q343 and I went in very skeptical. Very skeptical. If you know anything about me, especially on like the previous podcast, I mentioned that I feel that some of it's a little bit snake oily, you know, can it really justify the prices and the adoration that you get? For me, I've always perceived it as a luxury product, and that there's, you know, you spend a lot for the exclusivity, right? And maybe you're not getting that much more or even as much as, you know, another product that costs a fraction of the amount. So I got the Q343 in with my skeptical hat on, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it.
He loved it.
I thought it was amazing.
Q3.
Here's the thing. There is nothing magical about it or mystical, and there is nothing that you can do with it that I don't think you could match quality-wise with, say, a Sony a7R5 with one of their G Master lenses, right? If you want that kind of level of quality and resolution detail, you can get it. And with rendering as well, there's nothing magical about it. However, the magical part is that they've squeezed all that into quite a small portable device. And it's just really nice to use. And one of the revelations I had was actually how much I loved 43mm. I know Chris hates me for this, but I actually like 35mm coverage.
It's because you're smart.
I've got very used to it. I don't know about that. I've got very used to it on the X100 series. And I thought, 43 is going to be too long. It's going to be too long. But you know what? It's not. It's just right. It actually weirdly feels long enough, but wide enough. That doesn't feel compromised in any way. And leading on to what I said a moment ago about small, high quality, but not necessarily super bright lenses, that 43mm, it's f2, isn't it? Was it f2?
Yes, f2 now.
That lens is completely what I'm talking about. Make some of them. Sony, make a lens like that. Canon, make a lens like that. Fujifilm, do an APS-C version of a lens like that. Because it's super high quality. It's relatively small and light, but it doesn't need to be giant because it's not f1.4. We don't all need f1.4, you know? It's nice for something, but I just really liked it. And the final thing I'll say about, two final things I'll say about it. One is that when I picked it up, I was hoping to be blown away by the build quality, right? And I wasn't. I thought, I'm not getting the feels from it. I'm not getting I thought, okay. And then I shot with it for about a week. And then I picked up some other cameras. I was like, oh my God, these are terrible. These feel terrible. Maybe there is something in it. So it didn't feel good to me to start off with, but it made everything else feel bad, if you know what I mean. The second thing I'd say about it, and this was the shocker, because would I buy one as an X100 owner? Of course not, because it's bigger and heavier than it. It's way too expensive for me. But in all the comments on the review that I made of it were people who had orders in on the X100-6, and they went, I've cancelled my X100-6 order for like a Q343, and it got shipped the next day, which I'm very happy. And I was thinking, well, that's great that you got it as fast as you wanted, but were you not at all concerned that it's 3 times more expensive? And they were like, no. And that made me realize that there's a lot of people who just want a high quality small camera, and they were choosing the X100 because it was the best high quality small camera. They couldn't care less whether it's $2,000, $4,000, or $6,000. They just wanted the best small, and now the Leica Q3 gives them what they want.
Yeah, the Q343 you can actually just buy. It's weird. The 28 millimeter one, the Q3 original, is back ordered, but you can just get a 43 right now.
Yeah, so you could get it, and I mentioned to Sony again on when we saw them the other week. There were a couple of RX1Rs floating around. People who still owned them. What a fantastic camera! Still, they absolutely smashed it years ago. Make it again.
That's funny, Gordon, you say that, because it's hilarious, because we were just in New York City with Sony, and like all of the staff and executives, they all have these RX1Rs, and I'm like, so obviously your own people are like, this is the camera I would carry everywhere. It's like, what the hell? Why aren't they available? It's so mind-boggling. Anyways,
one question for all of you, right? And I know it's nothing to do with what we should be talking about, but I just want to briefly put a poll out there. If you were to update the RX1R and put any of Sony's current sensors in it, so it could be an A1 II, could be an A7R5 or whatever, which sensor would you put in it? Which is most appropriate?
Oh, the 60, because it's got a leaf shutter.
I would go for it does have a leaf shutter. I don't know. I'd almost go sensor. A1 sensor and get rid of the shutter altogether. Yeah.
Okay, back to Leica.
Yeah. So if you could give them a grade just on that one camera, Gordon, what would you give them?
Well, it's like what Chris was saying, because I actually listened to our previous podcast just before coming on to this one, and he was like, it doesn't matter because you're Leica and you do your own thing. And what do? Can I get? It's only one product in a year that I've seen. Can I give them a high grade for that?
That's a third of their output. I would give them an A for that product. But whether I can grade the company as an A based on one thing, but they did one thing that I saw and they did it really well.
Yeah. So first off, I can attest to Gordon's skepticism, and I think that's a great way to go into. I mean, it's been 15 years. He still hasn't warmed up to me. I don't know when that's going to happen, but everybody who touches the Q3, which is, by the way, a testament to how terrible the 35 millimeter lens is. I love that they skipped that entire range with their two cameras. That's one of my favorite things about them. It's incredible. There's a magic. There's a magic to their cameras that everybody seems to latch onto. I mean, almost without exception, everybody who goes into it knowing that it's impractical and the price is crazy just end up adoring the camera. And I mean, I enjoyed it too. Maybe I was more tempered because I'd already played with the Q3, the original 28 mil. And I personally, I kind of want the 28 still just because I feel like the wider is a bit more flexible. But yeah, it's amazing. And so good for them. They don't care. The Deluxe 8 came out earlier in the year, right? And that's kind of a funny one because, like, is it doing well? I've completely forgotten about it. I haven't thought about it once. And that's kind of maybe telling. I mean, it should be doing well. I don't know if anybody even knows it exists anymore. But it's great that they've had their biggest profits of all time. Again, they don't care what happens in the market. They really don't. And that's kind of their charm. And that's kind of the beauty of it. But yeah, the SL3... right, we talked about that earlier in July. Still doesn't wow me. So, I mean, I would give them like a C- because, as a if we're going by honest grading on this, they don't do much. A third of their camera business is, I don't think, very practical. Another third, I feel like people have forgotten. But the M series and the Q3 are just, they're so desirable, and they love them. So, yeah.
I went with a C last time because I do find the SL3 probably the least compelling of their offerings because it isn't a totally unique shooting experience the way their other products are. And as expected, we saw the M11D. I was really thinking they would add a few more of those classic models there, which is just the same camera without a screen on it. Ho-hum, but I was very surprised to see the Q343 with a brand new optical formula. You got to remember they've been using that 2817 now for like 8 years, I think, since the first Q came out. So seeing a new optic. And when Chris sent me the charts from that thing, it's like, good Lord, this is an optically almost perfect lens. It's staggeringly good, that one. So seeing that was really surprising, and I love the Q line. So I am going to bump them a teensy little bit to a B-.
Very nice. All right, we have so many more to go, and we are burning through time. So let's go as quickly as we can through some of these other ones. This one's easy. Nikon. Gordon, you are abstaining from Nikon because they don't send you things, right?
I'll just read Ted Forbes' new book instead.
We'll get back to that.
Oh, sorry.
We'll get back to that.
But it's quite good.
Before we get to Ted Forbes' book, so Nikon, Jordan. Chris, you gave it a B+ at the mid-year point, and Jordan, you gave them an A. Yep. Chris, what do you give them now?
I still give him a B+. I mean, the Z6 III is going strong. I don't know if sales are going strong, but the camera's good, right? Like, I still like it. We've played with it. I think it's a good option for people. Got to play with the new 50mm. I don't care about the 35, but the 50mm 1.4 came out. And that was something we were kind of wondering about in July, and they released it, and it's good. It's a nice, affordable, fast lens. Fantastic. And then, I mean, the biggest complaint that people had is they ignore APS-C. They don't care about APS-C. And it turns out, I guess they kind of do, because they also came out with the Z52 this year. And again, I liked it. It was a very capable camera, nice to play with. Great autofocus. Nikon's autofocus has been really improved now after all the firmware updates from early on. It is the same old sensor, and that is my biggest knock against them. And I don't care what people like. Yeah, all sensors take good photos. You can take great photos in that 52, but I would have liked to have seen that improve. But everything else is really nice. I mean, nice display, nice handling. So I feel like they've done a good job, and they kind of released stuff that we were asking for in the second part of the year. And that's pretty rare for these companies because other people have kind of ignored what we've asked them to do. The main knock that I have against Nikon, it's not really a knock. I mean, they obviously have to work on this, but the Z9 needs to be updated. The Z9 needs to be updated. And I didn't expect them to do that this year, but they're going to have to do it very soon next year, I think. I mean, I think that's
Chris,
something where the Z9 is...
What can they possibly... This is a totally separate discussion, I guess, at a certain point, but I kind of want you to think to yourself, what can they do to the Z9?
Oh, no, it's easy.
More. Like
it's easy.
Okay, all right, fine.
It's easy. The sensor's great. It's fine. It's great. What they need to do is improve the peripherals. So much better display, maybe make the camera body a little bit smaller, I think would be nice, although some people might disagree with me on that. But improve the screen, improve the EVF, maybe enhance the processing power, maybe a little bit faster buffer speed and stuff like that, but differentiate it from the Z8. Yeah. If you came up with a new sensor, great. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think they need to, especially as we're going to talk about Sony. There's not like a desperate need to really improve the sensor much, but no, it's got to be a version 2. It's got to be a version 2. Put better IBIS in it, all that kind of cool stuff.
Jordan?
Yeah, I gave them an A based on a very strong first half of the year. I love that Z6 III. It's still kind of my pick as a hybrid camera in that price range right now. And I was surprised that they brought out something APS-C. I really thought we'd see a Z5 update. I think that will be a much more popular one for them while they're on a roll right now. And the Z52 is a actually surprisingly competent camera, especially a really good hybrid model. But I want more from them. If they're going to be releasing 4 current APS-C models, I would like to see more than, I believe, 4 current APS-C lenses. And yes, Sigma and Tamron are picking up some slack there, but I want to see more from Nikon on them. But just based on the start of the year, I'm going to keep them at an A. They did very well. And those red LUTs are wonderful. If you have a Nikon camera that shoots N-Log, never use the official Nikon LUT ever again. Use those beautiful new ones. We just need to get them built into the cameras now. So firmware update 2025.
I think next year might be a very big year for them.
Yeah.
Okay. I really like what Nikon's doing. I'm not grading this at this point, but I'm just like saying Nikon right now is probably my favorite of the manufacturers, just like what their strategy is, how they are doing stuff. I will say that they announced these new Arcrest filters that are gold that will screw on to any of their Z lenses, and they make the Z lenses look so much better. So I'm looking you dead into the windows of your soul, Nikon. You need to use that gold more often. I know you're doing it on that power zoom lens, but do it everywhere. The rest of the lenses forever. Please put that gold on there. That little silver S is just not cutting it. Give me the gold. I love gold. All right, moving on. This one should be quick because there is basically nothing to say. OM system.
Yeah.
Gordon?
Well, they had the OM1 Mark II in the first half, didn't they?
Yes.
And in the second half, did they make anything?
I don't think so. Hold on.
No,
let me bring up the data.
No,
they have Curry.
Cameras, and I had to look for lenses, and I couldn't see any. So I don't think there's a great deal to talk about.
No, geez, wow. We have not covered OM system in the title of an article since July 16th, and that was for their heat and serve Japanese curry packets.
We still haven't reviewed. Oh, hang on, I got to change my grade. I forgot about the curry.
We missed an opportunity because they can't ship these to us because of like food regulation. So we had to get them in Japan, and we forgot. So we need to go back and get the curry.
Oh, that's right. We were there. We forgot.
Yeah, we forgot. So yeah, this year was essentially the 150 to 600 to 6.3, the OM1 Mark II.
Yeah.
So one more. The 9 to 18 f4 to 5.62. Those are the three things they announced this year.
Early in the year, yes. Yeah.
And we haven't seen anything.
Nothing new, and that sucks, and that's tough. So I gave him a D because, look, with how many times can the industry say you need to release some cameras, you need to release something new, and like that whale that died, which was Olympus in my last talk, right? And they were kind of living off the whale fall and making all this stuff. That whale is now just bones, and there's nothing left eating it. And pretty soon, the Deep Sea Explorer is going to move its cameras off something else. So they got to get some bioluminescent jellyfish appearing on camera. They got to get some anglerfish out there, some sort of light show in the deep sea, because otherwise people are just going to forget that they even exist there. So I know that's harsh, and I think they need it, and I think they know it, and I think everybody knows it. And again, Olympus was the dead carcass, not OM system. Let's be clear.
Well, they could at least use the tough cameras to photograph that carcass. They were well underwater.
There you go, right? But you know what I'm saying is just
released in 2023, I think.
Do you know what? Yeah. The product that everyone loved from Olympus back in the day was the Pen F. Just
we keep saying that, and I keep saying
that. I don't understand.
We can't say it anymore.
I think.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I do think that we will. We will. There is basically no choice for the company. They must do something cool early next year.
If there was one company that can't be doing this, it's OM System. So I sure hope that another dead whale comes down and life is reborn on it. Or so I have no idea.
Can we have a second metaphor for next year?
Yeah, the dead whale.
Are we grading Chris's metaphors?
That'll be at the end.
They need bioluminescent jellyfish. That's what I said. OM System needs to break out a bioluminescent jellyfish fireworks show.
Jordan, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I gave him a D+. I'm dropping it to a D because I was really hoping to see an update, especially on the EM10-4. That would be a great place to launch a small prime and a new camera body there. And we didn't see anything. But I also forgot about the curry. So rating pending until I try the curry.
Yeah. All right. Next one is Ricoh Pentax, which, Gordon, you also do not review, but they actually had a surprisingly good. Ted Force's book's back. They had a surprising year. So, Chris, you gave them a C+ at the midway point. What do you give Pentax Ricoh?
Yeah, I guess so I initially put on here a C-. Maybe a C, because again, they're another company that had a good start at the start, and that's great. They haven't released anything really since then. The GR3 HDF is a nice camera, and it is again that kind of situation where they can't make enough of them; they sell out. I enjoyed using it. I think there is actually some merit to that diffusion filter as a kind of creative alternate to having an ND filter. I probably personally would still want the ND filter version, but look, you're selling every camera you make. That's great. And it's a sexy camera and it's capable. Pentax 17, I think, is doing well. That's still awesome. But still no new SLRs. So because we haven't seen any news on a new SLR, and it really has to be like a new SLR, not a new version. Like it's got to be something cool. And I know we talked a lot about like retro inspired. I think that'd still be a good move, but it's kind of like a OM system where you're like, look, we've been talking about this for a while. We got to do it. Like something's got to happen here. So C-, just because, again, they're kind of letting that excitement go, but they had a good start to the year and they're doing good stuff.
Yeah, I think I oversold the success of the Pentax 17 because we recorded right after that was announced and they were immediately sold out everywhere. Since then, they are now a product that is in stock that you can pick up. The demand has slowed down. I gave them a B+ last time because I was like, look, if this turns into a huge, X106 kind of thing, that's going to fund the camera development a little bit more. Seeing as it's a successful product but not a colossal hit, I'm moving it down to a B- with the hopes, again, that the success of the GR and the Pentax 17 mean we're going to get something cool from them in 2025.
Yeah.
K13, for the love of God.
But it's got to be like new. It's got to have like, it can't just be like a new version. It's got to be like updated tech for sure.
All right, the last three. This one, I mean, they've just been on a string of good years, but here we go. Sigma, Gordon, you gave them an A at the halfway point, and they didn't slow down as far as I recall. What do you give them now?
Are we not doing Panasonic?
Did I skip Panasonic? I did skip Panasonic.
We missed Penny.
Oh, that's right. I that's my bad. Well, then fine. We'll skip Sigma for now. We'll go back to them. Give me some
It's Hellmount Alliance time.
Sorry about that.
Panasonic. So in the first half, we had a 100mm L-mount macro right in New Year, which was quite nice. We had the S9 body and the 26mm manual focus pancake. And the GH7. And the second half, not a lot. We got the Lumix S18 to 40, which is the lens that should have come out with the S9. So either it should have come out in the first half or the S9 should have come out in the second half. We may never know the reason why they didn't come out at the same time, but they didn't. And I think that really harmed them. It's a fine lens. It's a small lens. It's the lens that finally, I think, was it your thumbnail that said it finally makes sense now, the S9? Or someone put that on, and that's true. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
So that's good, but that should have been the first half of this year. That also doesn't get them off the hook that there isn't a good L-mount pancake prime lens, and the fact that Canon, Nikon, and everyone else has proven that you can make a 28mm f2.8 with autofocus. That's only a bit heavier and more expensive. Just go and do it. Just do that. We would love to see that. So the fact you've got this 26 f8, that doesn't get you off the hook. We need another one of them with a brighter aperture and autofocus. Just do that. It'd be nice. As it stands, though, not a lot in the second half. I mean, they refreshed, interestingly, one of their 60 times super zooms, the FZ80D. We call it the 82D in Europe. They gave it slightly better quality viewfinder and screen and USB-C, but otherwise it was the same thing. This, I think, came out in around 2017 originally. So it's quite interesting, quite bizarre, actually, unique to see somebody refreshing a bridge camera from that era. And I don't know are they testing the water? Because Panasonic had some really nice super zoom cameras, pocket ones, big ones, everything in between. I'm here for it. Bring them back. I want to see more categories. But based on what they've done now for the whole year, I think some of us were maybe hoping we'd see, a newer version of the S1 series. I think next year, hopefully, will be strong for them. But this year, middling, I would say. They got some fine products, but it's actually ended up being quite a quiet year. Unless I've missed something. So is that a C? I think so.
Solid middle of the line C?
Yeah, I reckon.
All right.
Unless I've missed something. Wow. Have I forgotten anything? You forgot them all together, Jaron. It was that exciting.
Yeah, sorry. Chris, what do you got?
So it's interesting. Both you and Jordan gave him B- last year, and I gave him a C+. And I was doing my research and I was looking at it, and on my phone right now it says Panasonic C-. And you know what? I was doing some soul searching and I'm like, I think I'm starting to take it a little bit personally. And I think I swear, honestly, and I think that's not right on my part. Like, they did have a very good year, and they did make some really good products. And I do take it personally that I said this last time, like, photographers I feel are being ignored by them, and I still feel that way. But at the same time, it's like, other companies are allowed to market to who they feel their market share is. So I think I'm being a little bit, not being harsh, but I'm taking it personally, and I shouldn't. As a reviewer, I shouldn't take it too personally. The 18-40 is a nice move. It still doesn't make the S9 that enjoyable for me. I would like to see like an advanced S9 that has an EVF, and I think that could actually be really cool. I would really find that to be quite useful. But I don't expect them to do that this year. I can't criticize them for that. The S9 did just come out. So yeah, I'm going to go to a B-, which is kind of funny. I'm actually going to raise my grade up because they have had a good year as a company. They've released a lot of products. They've addressed some of the issues that they had with one of their early releases, the S9. Bridge camera, I mean, okay, I don't care, but somebody might. Gordon does, so that's good. But yeah, I feel like they're still ignoring photographers, but I shouldn't take that as personally as I do.
I went B- last time because I adore the GH7. Every chance, I was using flagship cameras. We did reviews of the R1, the A1 too, and those are excellent hybrid cameras. But it was still just like, oh, it's so nice to get my hands back on the GH7 and its perfect handling and its lovely malleable files that come out of it. But it has been a disappointing back half in that 18-40. I'm always like, give me more ultra wide to standard zooms. That should be something I'm all over, but the variable, quite slow aperture is not that exciting to me. So I'm moving them from a B- to a C+, and really expecting, I think this is do or die with the S series this year, to get an S1 S1R2, or S2R, whatever they want to call it. Could be a very exciting year for them. But back half has definitely been slow.
Can't believe we reversed on that. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Now we can do Sigma. And I actually take back what I said. They had a great first half, but the second half was also quiet. Yep. We didn't see a bunch. You got anything you want to say about this, Gordon? What do you give them? Yes. You gave them an A last time.
Yeah, I mean, they had a tremendous first start, 24-72.8, which was great, 28-45, 1.8, which was great, 51.2, which was great, 505.6, which was great, 15 fisheye, which I didn't review, but it could be great.
It was great.
RF 18-52.8. Not a new lens, but it's for the RF mount, so that's great. A+, first half. Second half, actually, a few things. 28-105, 2.8, quite nice. Nice to have. And in my hands right now, they did the RF 10, Ted Fors's book. Ted, I'm waiting for the check. The 10 to 18.
Free book is nice and everything, but...
I know, but a man's got to live, right? A 10 to 18 2.8 in the RF mount, again, old lens, but now in the RF mount, and the 4 DCDN prime lenses. I'm not sure if all 4 of them are available. They sent me 2 of them, which I'm just finishing my review of right now. By the time you watch this, hopefully my review will be published, so check it out. That is of the 56 1.4 and the 30 1.4, not new lenses, but new to the Canon EOS R RF APS-C mount. So they're not allowed, or it hasn't occurred to them maybe to do full frame lenses. Maybe Sigma hasn't thought of that. They were like, oh, is that something people want? Oh, that didn't occur to us. I don't know, maybe that's the reason, but it did occur to them.
People believe this. People believe Sigma's like, nah, we don't want our lenses on the RF. Now, get out of here.
We did think about it, and we don't want to do it. We don't need the money or the love. We don't need it. Right. So we're gonna avoid that platform, but we are going to do our APS-C mirrorless lenses, all 6 of them. And they're brilliant. So thank you very much. And that actually means that if we're counting the 10 to 18, the 4 primes, and the 28 to 105, that's still 6 lenses in the second half. Sigma, A+ for this year.
Yeah.
Ka-ching.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Gordon. I mean, look, if they could release the RF mounts tomorrow, they would. They probably have them built, and they're just like, as soon as they say it, it's like, boom, they're going to be on the market. And so great lenses. I think this is really the year where they cemented their reputation as a, first party manufacturer. None of this value brand anymore. That's long dead now. And that's good. And so, lots of new lenses, lots of great lenses. They're kind of not doing any wrong right now. There's been no real controversies with their products. Like it's fantastic. So good for them. A+, 100%. Still no new camera.
Yeah, I went A- because of that. I'm not expecting a new Foveon camera. They've been updating us on that, but thinking we might see something else from them, but that hasn't been the case. But the 28-105, now I'm not sure if I'm looking back at it with rose-colored glasses because it was the last lens I used. I was shooting a wedding with that lens when I buggered up my ankle. So it was my last memory pre-buggered up ankle was using and loving that magical lens. But yes, I think they've just absolutely killed it. So I'm moving them from an A- to a straight A based on the goodness of that optic. And you know what? We'll see. Maybe we do just have to wait for Foveon.
I don't know. I mean, if they don't make a camera, I'm fine with it because they've never made one that I've really enjoyed since the Merrill series. And even then, I didn't enjoy it, but it was usable. But we'll see.
So we got two more. We can bang through these. This one's probably going to take the longest. Actually, why don't we end on this on Sony? Let's go do Tamron first, just to get that out of the way so you guys don't feel rushed on Sony. So Gordon's going to take the book back out because he does not review Tamron lenses. He's got a guy who puts his reviews on Camera Labs. Make sure you go check those out. Love how the focus is going to the book. That's a smart camera. So with that in mind, Chris,
Panasonic camera.
What did you grade? You did not give Tamron a grade last.
That's
at the midway
weird.
Point. You had a lot to say, but you didn't put a letter on it. So what
That's
do you?
Strange. I'm sorry about that.
This time?
I'm going to give them like a B-. Obviously, they're not going to have the same success. I'm going to take that back. There's no reason they shouldn't have the same cachet or success as Sigma, but they obviously don't. And that's fine. Like, Sigma's really taken off. I would love to see Tamron do the same thing, but that doesn't mean they're not making fantastic optics. They are. I always like their glass. The 90mm macro, of course, was awesome. I really enjoyed shooting that. And that was a great way to end the year. Very strong finish. And of course, hearing the news now that, primes aren't going away, that's still a focus on them. Great. The 20-300, I really enjoyed as a super zoom, and I shot that in the worst situation possible for a super zoom. Like that's a travel lens. That's a take one lens and go and shoot stuff lens. And I used it at night to shoot concert photography, right? Where the slow aperture should hold you back and stuff. But you know what? I love the shots. It did a great job. I think it's nice to see that market come back. I feel like there is a good market for super zooms, and they were really big in the DSLR days and the film SLR days. And so it's nice to see now that they're returning on mirrorless. Panasonic did something and it was like, and the Tamron, theirs is really good. So I was happy to see that. I hope it comes out on more mounts. So I want to see Tamron do better. I only want great things for Tamron in the future. And I think already talked about make some of those interesting 1.8 primes. Like there's a market for it. Affordable primes. They always make lightweight lenses. I appreciate that they always match for filter size and stuff. Like they're good company.
I went C- last time because the first two lenses were more, I would say, very consumer centric. The 28-300 and the 50-300 are quite slow, but nice and compact. But yeah, that 90 again. Chris sent me the charts, and it's just like, hot damn, this thing is straight fire, as the kids say.
Do they?
So I'm moving it from a C- to a C+. But I just keep thinking back to that 35-150 and being like, where's that Tamron? I want that Tamron.
Everybody loves it.
Yeah. Okay. Final stop. Sony. Freshen your minds because we were just in New York. So Gordon.
We were just there.
Yeah. Gordon, at the midway point of the year, you gave Sony a C+. Now the year has ended with a flagship camera dropping in the weirdest month to drop a flagship camera. What are your thoughts?
So we started the first half with the A9 III. I've got the 16-25, the 24-52.8. Second half, we did get a mildly updated ZV E10 II, and a refreshed 16-50 kit zoom. We had an 85 1.4 GM2, which is very nice.
Yes.
But most importantly, we're talking about the A1 II and the 2870 f2. I was interested by the 2870 f2 because obviously, you know, the traditional range is 24 to 70. So if you are willing to compromise, you miss out on your 24 to 28, you can do something with it. You can either make it lighter and cheaper, or you could go large and make it brighter, which is what Canon did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the launch, lest we forget, it was a long time ago. The launch of EOS R is when Canon brought out that 2870. So I think that's 6 years, a while. So 6 years of lens evolution has allowed Sony to make a considerably smaller and lighter, noticeably lighter. It's like just under a kilo compared to about 1.5 kilos for the Canon, which makes it much more practical if it's an event lens and you're carrying it around all day or all night or all day and night. You are going to really appreciate something that's 2/3 the weight. And despite Chris's bokeh debacle, bokeh gate, as we will now refer to it, the results are really nice from it. Can we believe a word that this man now says about Sony or indeed
the
anything?
onion ring ding.
I know that's the revelation today. I don't know about you guys. The A1 II in a tough position because the A1 already did almost everything. There were a few weird things missing. Remember, this was 4 years ago. It didn't have pre-capture. I don't think it had focus bracketing. I think it preceded things like a bulb timer or an intervalometer or some. There were a few like pretty basic things it didn't have. And over the years, Sony has kind of added those back into their cameras or put them in. It acquires all of that. It puts it in the A9 III body. So what you end up with is a camera that really only had one brand new feature as far as I was aware, which is auto subject detection. So it got all of the new subjects from the A9 III, and it's got the AI-based AF processor. That works really well. We've already seen it. But it now has an auto mode, which means, and I've tested the hell out of it because it's what I've always wanted. So I thought I'd better, put my money where my mouth is and say, like, I tried it out a lot. I tried it. So when I'm testing cameras, I'm often down at Brighton seafront and I'll be thinking, right, I'm photographing seagulls now, so you want bird detection, right? But then you see a really interesting dog walks past or something. This is Brighton, they're quite out there, the outfits that they wear. So I want to, I'll go switch to animal detection. There's an interesting looking person. There's a street scenario. I want auto subject detection. They put it on and it works brilliantly. The response time is fractionally slower. When I was photographing birds just suddenly appearing in the frame, split second difference between auto, I'll have a go at everything, and dedicated bird or bird and animal. So I thought that was tremendous. I would use it for everything apart from if I was like, I'm only going to be photographing birds or I'm doing a portrait shoot only of pet dogs. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to put it on the animal mode. For everything else, brilliant. But you understand why people were a bit kind of disappointed that there was no wow feature. But then it's only the second time they've used this sensor. Of course it was going to turn up in something again. And 50 megapixels at 30 frames per second is more than enough for me. I'm very satisfied with that. So you're kind of torn. On the one hand, you're disappointed. On the other hand, it's like what you expect. And you also, that takes you down a route where you think, should we always be expecting these cameras to be completely rebuilt and reinvented every single time? It's unsustainable. You can't just expect that degree of growth for everything. But as I said at the beginning, it does make the R5 Mark II look quite affordable in comparison. That's the big thing that I took from it. The A1 II is a camera that does virtually everything very, very well, but it's $6,500. And the market has moved on. When the A1 came out, the R5 Mark I came out, and it was quite compromised in some ways. So it's a very easy review to make. You'd say, look, the R5 Mark I does loads, but if you wanted to do it more kind of confidently, without as much overheating or without skewing, get the A1. That's what you spend the extra on. But now that's a bit more blurred. So I'm still a little bit torn over the A1 II. On the one hand, I love it. It's my favorite camera in the series. But on the other hand, you can't help but want more because we're greedy and we're used to it. So I would say, what did I give them for the first half, Jaron? Did you make a note of that?
You gave them a C+.
Wow. Well, it's got to go up because the A1 II, that was quite harsh, wasn't it? I would say a solid, I'm going to give them a B+.
That's what I was thinking.
Maybe for what we want from Sony is an A. So that's reflecting the disappointment of the people who wanted more, but I still think it's a solid score. Do you know what I mean?
Ooh. Well, I'm going to get in trouble then.
But bring back the RX everything. I want the RX everything back. RX1, I want the RX 100, I want the RX Mark, I want the RX 10. Mm-hmm. They're all great. Can we have them again, please?
You want the RX Zero
back? Then you get an A.
Yeah,
not that one. Not that one.
Yeah.
So I'm, I B++. I'm going to give him an A-. I'm going to give him an A with a minus behind it, and that's not just because they gave me $4.6 million this year. I think Sony makes some of the best lenses. I will say there's some of my favorite lenses across the board. They're sharp. I think the emphasis on making everything lighter and smaller has been very positive and very successful. The 85mm 1.4 I thought was great. Love that optic. Ideal, and it was noticeably smaller and lighter. The 2870 for me is God tier. I've already gushed on that. So that, and when I heard that come out, I mean, yeah, Jordan saw it. I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. I lost my mind. So yeah, I think Sony's done a really good job.
I witnessed it.
He witnessed it. And ZV-10, sure. But I really enjoy the cameras. And so when it comes to the A1 II, I get that a lot of people give it a hard time. But at the same time, they made the first flagship camera for mirrorless, I would say. The A1 was really the first, look what we can do. This is all the best technology. Yes, it's expensive, but it's very versatile. And there wasn't really anything that camera couldn't handle. And for me, a flagship camera should be a camera that a professional can use in the roughest environments for many different kinds of photography. And I'm not saying the A1 was perfect, but it really showed a lot of potential, right? And that sensor was way ahead of its time. So when the A1 II came out, I had the same reaction everybody did. Oh, it's a body we've seen before. It's a sensor we've seen before. But it's a hell of a sensor. I mean, it really does compete with everybody else's sensor. It gives us 5 more megapixels than Nikon. It's giving us very similar scan rates. The Canon R1 sensor is great, but it's half the megapixel count. So you're like, look, that's still an achievement. And on top of that, Sony's body design, it's compact. The A9 III body, that's what it's using, but that is their best body. They've come a long way in having better menus, better controls, better handling, best screen design you'll find from any brand of company as far as the back panel goes. Fantastic EVF with incredibly high resolution. You don't need to improve on that. They did so much already, it makes sense to have this. Do I want a 12 million dot EVF? I don't think so. I don't think we need it. So it kind of brought us into an interesting thought experiment that Jordan and I were talking about the other day. And I was like, imagine if the A1 never existed. Imagine if Sony just came out with the A1 II as their flagship camera in response to the Nikon Z8, Z9, and the R5 II and the R1. And if you think about it that way, you'd look at the A1 II and you'd be like, damn, it's expensive, but great body, best LCD panel, best EVF, can handle any kind of photography, decent video capability. The autofocus is very reliable. The auto subject detection is great. It's got pre-capture. You would look at it and say, yes, against a Z9, it's more expensive, but it's also got a better EVF and it's got really good controls and higher megapixel count, fast scanning. So I think if you look at it in that way, if you really just judge it on its merits right now, it is a flagship camera by every right. And I think it earns that position. And especially compared to the R1, it doesn't really look that expensive. Compared to the Z8, Z9, it absolutely does, but it does have those features that those cameras don't have when it comes to displays and EVF and stuff. And so it makes Nikon's cameras fantastic value for the dollar, even more fantastical, which is great for them. It does kind of make the Z9, though, look even worse than it did before. If the Z8 didn't make the Z9 look bad, this now kind of makes it look a little bit worse. And so that's why I feel it needs to be updated. And Canon is going to have to answer with something soon, I think.
Gordon, you were raising your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly respond to a couple of things there, Chris. The viewfinder is gorgeous, but it does reduce resolution while it's continuously autofocusing, and that's something I think is important to mention. And I don't believe the 4K video is oversampled. Now, I wouldn't mind a higher quality 4K version, even if it recorded for less time. Everyone had to go at Canon for their 4K fine, overheating faster, but at least it had a better quality option if you wanted it. And I think that screen, which is great, I love the articulation, but Panasonic came up with that first, didn't they, on the S1H, I think. So just 3 things out, because it's easy to gush about the A1 II, and there's a lot about it, but it's not perfect.
Okay, so are we going to have a rebuttal then? Let's have a fight.
Go, Chris.
No, and I agree with what you're saying, but yeah, the fact that somebody came out with it doesn't mean it's not a fantastic design. And I mean, they're slightly different. And the EVF is still going to be way better than the 3.69 million dot that we get out of the Nikon bodies. And especially on a high resolution camera, when you want to do playback, for me, the high EVF isn't for the high res EVF isn't necessarily for shooting. When it comes to shooting photography, I just want it to be blackout free and responsive, which it is. And so is the Nikon. It comes into playback. When I go into my photos, I want to be able to see detail, judge that things are sharp, and that's where that high resolution really appeals to me. So that's where the advantage would be for me on that.
I agree.
And video, I mean, Jordan's going to talk about that next. So that doesn't really impact me as much. It's still a good video camera. You can't deny it. It's still a good video camera. Yeah.
So I went B- at the start of the year. I was quite underwhelmed by what Sony was up to, but since then, that ZVE-10 II, I don't think it's a good vlogging camera, as Gordon said, Pocket 3 all day. I do think it is a good creator camera. It's like a static, set it up, good picture quality, finally moving to a sensor that makes sense for shooting video. That was a big move, where the E10 I would consider basically unusable for that. But that was a nice update. I agree fully on the lenses. The 85 is killer. That 28-70 looked beautiful. But the A1, I really do have to criticize it for what Gordon was getting to there, which is so much of the stuff that seems to be processor limitations with it, like dropping the resolution in the EVF, not being able to shoot lossless compressed RAW at 30 frames per second. That's not a sensor limitation. That's a processor limitation. And the video not being oversampled. Given almost 4 years, I really thought they would have resolved those issues. It almost seemed lazy to me. In some way. I mean, maybe it is just, it's the same chip that they had before with the AI processor on there. Maybe there's no way to offload that differently. But those were disappointing things I was really expecting Sony to address. So I'm still going to give them a B+. I think the A1 II is an incredible camera. The ZVE-10 II has its place, and they've slayed with glass. But it's not the Sony I'm used to seeing, where all the time it would just be like, whoa, that came out of nowhere and is very impressive. Or the ones who are like, you've been complaining about this, we're going to address it in the subsequent model, because they didn't address any of those 3 concerns.
All right. Well, we are extremely long, so I'm going to cut this short. We will not have a tech supporter never read the comments this week, so maybe next week we can get to it. But we have a very packed podcasting schedule for the rest of this season. So we're going to end the show with a feel-good story of the week that Gordon has been teasing for this whole show, and that is that our good friend
camera available.
Wrong book.
Yeah. If you bought this one already, buy this one.
So I also have one, because Ted Forbes is a good friend of mine, and
clearly a good friend
of Gordon. Jordan and Chris, you guys got to step up your friendship with Ted Forbes. Ted Forbes wrote a book. It's called Visually Speaking. This is really fun. I don't know if it's going to work for everyone. If you've watched Ted Forbes' channel, you know his voice and you know how he talks. If you read this book, it's crazy. I can hear his voice so clearly in how he writes that its voice is in my head. It's usually when I read books, it's my own voice I hear in there. But no, this time it's Ted's voice I hear. I like the way he's formatted this book. He's also filled it with a lot of really lovely photography that helps really, for me, it's making me want to go out and shoot again, which Chris likes. I know Chris likes it when I feel inspired to go take pictures. This book is definitely doing that for me. We are not affiliate linking to Ted's book or anything. I'm not getting any kickbacks. I just legitimately think this is a good book. You should go check it out. I'll put a link to it in the description below. We plan to have Ted on in January. We don't have time for him right now, and he doesn't have time for us right now.
I think it was more the latter.
We can't get him on the show because he's too busy. But we'll get him in January, and we'll talk some more about his book then. But if you're looking for something that you're not sure what to get for a photographer friend of yours, this is probably a very good option.
So I would just say it's like there's a lot of instructional books out there on photography where they're very instructional, but they really just talk about technical benefits. And Ted is so good at really making you fall in love with photography and the art behind it, as well as teaching you how to do that yourself and how to achieve those things. And I'm also going to say Canada Post is on a postal strike right now, so nothing is coming over the border from USPS. And that's probably what it is. That's probably why we don't have them.
That'll be it.
Yeah.
Or Ted doesn't like us.
And then you know what? If that's the case, his book sucks. Don't buy it.
All right. Well, with that, Gordon, thank you for joining us again for this. We will be happy to see you again on the podcast. It's always been great. And with that, we're going to end it. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Love you, Gordon.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.